Thank you very much, Jasper, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for giving me your time and attention. So I'm going to jump into the presentation and share my screen. There you go. Okay, friends, so tonight we are continuing our journey with Keep Thriving, and we are exploring a bit more. Now, last time we looked at the previous sessions, virtually all of the previous sessions, we looked at the software elements. And in other words, it was all the mental elements that we looked at in the previous sessions, and we covered the mental stuff, so the programming of your hardware. So tonight, as we continue on the journey, we are at chapter 6 of 7, and it is called Service Your Hardware. So what do I mean with hardware? Now, your hardware is made up of your actions, your habits, and your behaviors. This is all the external stuff that we see. So your body is executing the instructions that it receives from the software or your mind. So this is effectively the output and the outcomes you experience on your journey. And this will have a significant impact on the quality and quantity of your life. So your lifestyle plays a very big role on which of your genes, in other words, your DNA, gets activated and which genes remain dormant. So in this session, I will explain 9 strategies that will help you that you can apply to optimize your immune function and the quality of your life. So this really is the what and the how. So these are all the strategies that I'm going to briefly look at in this section or in this chapter. And I'm going to discuss each of these with you and how you can optimize this. So this is really lifestyle strategies that minimize inflammation, that optimize immune function, health, and performance. So we are what we repeatedly do. Now, I've discussed this in a previous session. You are made up of your habits. So we are ultimately the sum of our habits over time. So to maintain top physical and mental health, you need to regularly update your hardware. You need to keep your tools sharp in order to be effective. Now, the aim with what we are discussing today really is to create a robust immune system that's going to help you to live a longer and a better life. Now, this system protects you from harmful substances, germs, and cellular changes that might make you ill over time. So more importantly, this will protect you against chronic inflammatory diseases like strokes, chronic respiratory diseases, heart disorders, cancer, obesity, diabetes, etc., as well as against pathogens and bacteria. It will also protect you against psychological chronic stress and anxiety. So I just want to get a few terms out of the way before I go ahead. Genes, your genetic material, your genome responds to the signals it receives. This is the study of epigenetics. So these signals that your genes receive comes from your diet, activities, actions, your thoughts and feelings. In other words, your lifestyle choices and your states of mind all influence the suppression or the expression of certain genes. So your day-to-day lifestyle choices and habits will have a huge influence on the expression of your genetic predispositions. So DNA is not locked or static. You can influence what is expressed and what stays suppressed. It is your choice. You choose and control your genetic destiny. Sleep, stress, nutrition, exercise, all of these change the expression of your genes. Hormesis, this is just a term that describes an idea that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So these strategies that I'm going to share with you are all stimulating pathways on a biological level that mimic an environment which causes little stresses over time. And this is the conditioning or the optimizing of your immune system. And then autophagy. This is a catabolic process that slows down cellular aging. It's an adaptive response to stress and helps to avoid cellular death. In other words, this is really a recycling process And this recycling process gets rid of dysfunctional cellular components that have been linked to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Hutchinson's, dementia, chronic infections, cancers, and heart disease. So it also helps your body to respond to pathogens and viruses and bacteria. Therefore, the goal is to really increase this natural process called autophagy, which is the killing of thick, dead, and dying and senescent cells in the body. So these are the 9 strategies, and I put them in this diagram because it's amazing to see how all of these strategies are interwoven with one another. In other words, there's a positive feedback loop. So the more you practice each of them, the easier the others become, and the bigger the effect and the benefit they have collectively, one on top of the other. Okay, so jumping straight into the first one, state management. Now, I've touched on states in previous sessions. You're always in a mind-body state of being. Your states fluctuate. Your states can be resourceful or unresourceful. Everything we do happens from a state. Examples of states are, you could be excited, you could be tired, you could be curious, you could be stressed. You are in a state right now. So chronic negative states over time lead to disease. That's why it's so important to manage them. So what's important to notice is that your states can be influenced through 2 pathways. First, your body, your physiology, and then your mind. So if you are ever stuck in an unresourceful state, anxious, stressed, worried, depressed, etc., you can use the following state change techniques. First up is changing your breathing. Now, if you take a deep breath, this infuses your body with oxygen. Now, we often find that negative states like anxiety or stress is accompanied by short and shallow breathing. So taking a deep breath will immediately impact your state, it will impact your thinking, your focus, and can leave you with a sense of calmness. Then changing your vision. Similarly, our eyes have it as an effect on our state. So your eyes are actually 2 pieces of the brain outside the skull. So if you are in a negative state, once again, if you are stressed or anxious or worried, your eyes are normally focused on a narrow vision, on a narrow point. So if you move your eyes around, if you move your eyes either up in your skull as far as you can without moving your head, or you move your eyes left to right, a lateral eye movement. You can actually do this right now, moving your eyes from left to right without moving your head. And this changes your peripheral vision, and it has a change and an effect on your state. So changing your vision can put you into a more resourceful state. And then just becoming aware of the fact that you are in a state can already change your state. This will put you at a higher level of awareness. It almost gives you the sense of stepping aside. So the act of becoming aware of your state will slightly separate you from that state of mind. So this empowers you and makes you realize that you have a choice over your state. Then your posture. You can change by changing your posture, of putting your arms up, lifting them up, and putting yourself in the victory pose, pulling your chest up, can actually have a big impact immediately on your endocrine system. In other words, on your hormones and neurotransmitters. It changes your nervous system, and as a result, it changes your state. There's a reason why when people win a race or when they win a trophy, they posture like this. So when we are crouched or slouching, the body is sending signals to the brain that you're expecting or experiencing something negative. So just opening up your chest has an effect on your state. Then changing your facial expression by moving, stretching, or massaging the muscles in your face and neck. This can change your state. So these areas normally become very tense or fixed when you are in an unresourceful state. Movement. Any movement, like standing up, walking around, or more vigorous activity like running and exercise or playing a sport, is a powerful way to change your state. And then changing your thinking or feeling. So the easiest way to tap into this is to listen to your internal dialogue. What are you saying to yourself? What are these commands that you're sending to your nervous system? Tap into the self-talk and become aware of it. And if it's negative, identify that and change it to positive. And in the same way that your silent self-talk can influence you, similarly, your verbal, audible choice of words can have an impact on your state. So if we choose words and language that empower and inspire and put a positive spin on your conversations, this can change your mind from the inside out. Using more resourceful language can have a very powerful influence on your state. So just remember, emotional fluctuations are normal and healthy and what it means to be alive. But being aware of your states and leveraging them to your benefit is what it means to be human. So practice the following regularly. Be aware that you are always in a state. Practice state awareness. Remember that your state affects how you think, feel, and act and perform. And you have a choice. You can change your state if it's not serving your purpose. So remember, over time, negative states can lead to chronic disease, and negative frames of mind and negative outlooks can over time be considered and influence your health and longevity. Okay, so the second of the 9 strategies is exercise. Hopefully, I don't have to tell you the importance of exercise. There's a wealth of information in the public domain that illustrates the importance of movement. So exercise just has a tremendous effect on your endocrine system and on every other system in your body. And it primes your hormones for survival and feeling good. Exercise also changes the gene expression for the better, and it stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like growth hormone for the brain. The reality is exercise doesn't have to be hard or long to be beneficial. So you can just try and incorporating more small movements throughout the day. So whether you're taking the stairs, whether you're walking a bit further, where you just use every opportunity that you can to move. The sedentary lifestyle is the main cause for premature aging, disease, and death. And as we know, our modern lives have been designed around sitting more and moving less. So research reveals that there are correlations between exercise and your metabolism, the levels of inflammation, as well as mortality, and that there are 3 areas that you need to pay attention to. These 3 areas are muscle strength, cardiovascular health, and mobility or stability. So try and do something that stimulates each of these pathways. Muscle strength is resistance training or a sport of some sort. Cardiovascular health is general fitness like brisk walking, running, swimming, or cycling. And mobility or stability comes down to stretching, doing stuff like Pilates, etc. People often ask how much exercise. And that really depends on individual factors like goals, objectives, your current level of fitness, and individual preferences. But the research suggests a minimum of 30 minutes per day, at least 5 days a week, at an intensity of 60 to 80% of maximum perceived heart rate. But that being said, 10 minutes a day is better than nothing. The most important thing is, and my motto is, to keep moving. Okay, nutrition. Also something that there's a wealth of information out there. There's also so much information out there that it can be confusing. But your diet expresses genes through your gut and through your microbiome and other numerous pathways. So what you eat directly influences your hormones and your neurotransmitters. These tightly regulate your blood glucose, energy levels, focus, attention, mood, productivity, health, and much, much more. So while it's important to get the right ratio of macronutrients, in other words, protein, carbohydrates, and fats, for your specific requirements, you also need to pay attention to avoiding nutrient deficiencies. If you focus too much on the macronutrients and you forget about the micronutrients, it doesn't really matter whether you follow a low carb, a keto, a plant-based, or carnivore diet. The really important thing is to get in enough micronutrients, coenzymes, and cofactors from your food choices. These are organic molecules, also known as helper molecules, and they are required by certain enzymes to catalyze important biochemical processes and reactions in the body. If you're not getting in enough nutrients or cofactors for the various metabolic processes, your nervous system and endocrine system won't function optimally, and this will severely limit your health outcomes, recovery, growth, performance, and longevity. So, what to eat? Now, giving generic advice for diets is like walking on eggshells. It's messy and dangerous, as I don't know each of your unique situations and requirements. But there are general guidelines. And that being said, keeping individual and genetic differences in mind, most, but not all people, will do best on an omnivorous, low sugar, low processed food diet. So it's critical to consume enough amino acids through protein, as well as essential fatty acids. If these two essential groups of nutrients are deficient in anyone's diet, physical and psychological problems will show up. The thing is, many people have genetically predisposed food intolerances and digestive and absorptive disabilities, and everyone is different. Some people have lactose or dairy, gluten, wheat, or sugar intolerances that causes inflammatory responses in many people. There are even some anti-nutrients in some plants, like phytates, oxalates, and lectins, that prevent other nutrients and cofactors from being absorbed properly. And we all respond to these substances differently. So therefore, without really doing genetic testing, it's really hard to uncover which is optimal for you, but the best is to go through trial and error and see what works for you. But I can summarize it for you. What is the best thing to do? Get sufficient protein in. Most people are not getting in enough protein, and then therefore they're not getting in enough amino acids. And you can get this in through lean meat, poultry, chicken, fish, eggs, and some dairy. Or vegan sources, if that is your preference. However, it is much harder to get the correct amino acid ratio in through purely vegetarian sources. It's not impossible. And then fats and oils. You should include enough essential fatty acids from olive oil, avocado or avocado oil, nuts, seed, and some saturated fats like eggs, dairy, or coconut oil. By doing that, you cover the three main groups of fats, which is polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated fatty acids. Carbohydrates and fiber can be acquired through predominantly leafy green vegetables, some low GI fruit, and grains if it is desired. Now, salt is something that has been very controversial in the past. However, it contains sodium and chloride, which regulates muscle contraction, nerve function, blood pressure, and fluid balance. Your neurons and therefore your nervous system depends on salt to function. The chemical and electrical signaling requires electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Of course, people who suffer from high blood pressure should be careful with ingesting too much salt, but provided that's not the case for you, consuming high quality, could be table salt, could be iodized table salt, Himalayan salt, etc., or sea salt, all support healthy nervous system and brain function as well. Then herbs and spices, really beneficial. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but rosemary, turmeric, garlic, cinnamon, etc., are really valuable for various anti-inflammatory and antioxidant reasons. Then fermented food, also very beneficial on the gut microbiome, which influences a lot of other bodily systems, including your immune function. So getting in some fermented food is really good. Kombucha, kefir, yogurt, kimchi, or sauerkraut, or even vinegar. So remember this: don't consume processed food, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, preservatives, and stabilizers. The easiest answer to this question, whether food has been processed or not, is to ask, was it made by man or God or nature? So choose natural, unprocessed food, preferably organic and free range if possible. It's not essential, but if you have a choice, stay hydrated, get enough water and salt, electrolytes in with your water, eliminate nutrient deficiencies, minimize alcohol, minimize plastic food containers. Okay, getting to strategy number 4, time-restricted feeding, also known as intermittent fasting. Now, this has been quite a key word of late in the health and wellness industries and circles. And the reality is, this is actually a very biblical principle, is to go for periods without food. Now, the thing is, when you give yourself, your body, a chance to not eat, then more energy and resources are being directed towards recovery, repair, recycling, and the immune response. The reality is that frequent eating or snacking causes fluctuations in insulin, and it diminishes autophagy, that natural cellular recycling process that I mentioned earlier. At the same time, fasting increases brain-derived neurotropic factor. It also increases growth hormone, which enhances neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, which is the growth of new brain cells, and it reduces your risk for dementia like Alzheimer's disease. So the thing is, if you eat, your body releases insulin to balance the sugar molecules and the nutrients in your blood. And then you store surplus nutrients and sugar in the liver and muscle cells, which aren't needed right there and then. When you fast, you give your body a chance to utilize some of those stored nutrients. If we are constantly in a fed state, we are just storing nutrients. So we need to go through cycles of famine and feast. Sometimes we need to be hungry. Now, this feeling of hunger and this feeling of restriction has tremendous physical and psychological benefits. This process helps to recycle dysfunctional cellular components that has been linked to disease. And your timing of eating really depends on your circadian rhythm, your social environment, and lifestyle. So there's not a perfect recipe or formula for anyone. But giving yourself bigger periods of fasting between your meals can be really beneficial. Interesting point here is that salt can facilitate adherence when fasting without breaking your fast. Often when we are not eating and we get hungry, our body is craving salt and not food. So if you have a bit of salt in water, you'll feel it'll take away any jitters. It might mitigate any lightheadedness and stabilize blood sugar. And this is again provided you don't suffer from hypertension. So it's amazing the mental clarity that can come from fasting. Sometimes when you think you need food, but you actually need a salt. So like I say, choose a protocol or window that is manageable and sustainable for your lifestyle. Strategy number 5 is improving body composition. In other words, decreasing body fat. Of all lifestyle changes to reduce chronic inflammation, the most effective is weight loss. So fat tissue is an endocrine organ secreting multiple adipokines and inflammatory mediators. These are harmful substances, which increases the inflammatory markers of the body. Some reports show that the body mass index of an individual is proportional to the amount of pro-inflammatory cytokines being secreted. So what's interesting is that visceral fat accumulates inside and around the intra-abdominal organs like the liver, kidneys, and intestines. And this is detected by an increased waist circumference. This pattern of obesity, where most fat is carried around the abdomen is called central obesity. So in contrast, subcutaneous fat is the fat deposited directly under the skin. The reason I bring this up is because different fat distribution is associated with different health risks. Some normal weight people show the same metabolic abnormalities as in obesity because excessive visceral fat can cause damage. So your waist to height ratio is a simple measure for central obesity, and it's calculated by comparing your waist circumference to your height. Optimally, your waist should be less than half your height. The strategy number 6 is hot and cold exposure. In other words, temperature stress. This stress has a very favorable effect on your immune system. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but both hot and cold exposure, in other words, taking cold showers or cold plunges or exposing yourself to cooler temperatures for short periods of time, as well as something like sauna treatment or hot baths, can have a tremendously powerful and influential effect on your health and longevity through various metabolic pathways. So it activates that autophagy and hormesis, and there's really small stresses that activate survival and longevity genes to help you live a healthier, longer life. And then breathing. Breathing, as I mentioned earlier, has a direct impact on your autonomic nervous system, on your endocrine system, and therefore your immune response. It also has an immediate effect on your cognitive state and emotional state. So certain breathing patterns will calm you down. Others will make you more alert. And I'm going to look at one or two breathing patterns here. There are more in the book. So everything that I'm talking to you about now, I discuss at great length in the book and give you much more detail. So this is a quick reset of the autonomic nervous system. And it's just a double inhale through your nose and then an exhale through your mouth. And you can try it with me. Let's do it 3 times. So it's double through your nose. So it's, and then exhale through your mouth. So double inhale, exhale through the mouth. Double inhale, exhale through your mouth. If you do that 3 or 5 times, it gives you a quick reset of the nervous system. And then this is more of a relaxed breathing if you want to bring about tranquility. It's also known as diaphragmatic box breathing. And this stands for, I call it 5-5-10, stands for a 5 seconds inhale, a 5 seconds hold, and then a 10 seconds exhale. So if you do this for 10 to 15 to 20 minutes before you go to bed or when you want to relax, or if you had a stressful day, this will bring about an immediate sense of calm and peace, lowers your cortisol and lowers adrenaline. Now then, there's one more method of breathing which can really boost your immune system. No one talks about this. Now, the thing is, it's been right in front of you all of this time. It's literally in front of your eyes. It's called your nose. So just using your nose, it is designed and equipped to deal with airborne bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens. Avoid breathing through your mouth unless it's absolutely necessary, like when exercising, talking, and eating, etc. Focus on always breathing through your nose when possible, and then you are utilizing one of the most effective tools against intruders at your disposal. Sleep. Sleep is absolutely critical strategy for health and longevity. Now, your circadian rhythms are biological processes or clocks that exists in 80% of your cells in your body. So how you sleep and your circadian clock, when you rise and when you eat, these are all programming genes to be turned on or turned off, and influences every aspect of your health, from your weight to energy levels to resistance to disease, infection, etc. And this is all determined how well you sleep. A lack of quality sleep slows down your metabolism, increases blood pressure, causes insulin resistance, which is a precursor to diabetes and obesity. It increases cortisol, which is stress hormones, and it's linked to various types of diseases. Only one night's poor quality sleep will negatively affect your body's ability to fight infections and pathogens. Sleep improves repair and recovery from any stressor. Lack of sleep does the opposite. In other words, insufficient sleep will make you old and it will make you sick. So, high levels of inflammation negatively affect sleep. Being sedentary negatively affects sleep. Poor blood sugar regulation negatively affects sleep. So all of these things work together. From a circadian rhythm viewpoint, sleep is when your immune response operates optimally. Circadian biology is not just the quantity and quality, although that is important. It's also about your sleep-wake cycle and your breathing. So your breathing is going to affect your sleep quality. If you breathe through your mouth, this might lead to sleep apnea, and this might lead to weight gain and obesity. So what some people do is they tape their mouth closed in order to prevent them from breathing through the mouth. So autophagy, that recycling process, is also influenced by your circadian rhythm. So to optimize your sleep rhythms, it's vitally important to get the sufficient duration, depth, continuity, and regularity of sleep. Artificial light, unnatural living conditions, alcohol, stimulants, poor diet, inactivity, and stress are some of the contributing factors that will upset your circadian clock. So identify and correct these, and you'll improve your sleep, and which will improve your cognitive and physical performance, your energy levels, your immune function, your overall health and longevity. Here are a few tips for optimizing sleep and circadian rhythm. Maintain a pattern of going to bed and rising more or less at the same time. So regardless if it's weekend or weekday, try and get into a rhythm of going to bed more or less at the same time and getting up more or less at the same time every day. Sleep in a cool, dark room. Ensure you're breathing with ease through your nose. Quality bed and mattress is an invaluable asset, especially considering you're going to spend a third of your life on it. Avoid bright light between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. This upsets that circadian clock. Spend 2 to 10 minutes twice a day viewing the sky. Now, this is very interesting. Once in the morning when the sun rises, and once in the evening when the sun sets. So this viewing of sunlight that I've mentioned now is fundamental to instruct your brain when to be active and when not to be. There are photoreceptive cells in your eyes that pay attention to the contrast between the yellow and the blue light in the sky. So cortisol is stimulated early in the morning, in the day, to give you energy, focus, and wakefulness, while it secretes melatonin later in the evening to put you to sleep. So this viewing of the light in the sky at the morning and in the evening triggers these effects, and this anchors your circadian rhythm. This affects your blood sugar regulation and can lead to eating disorders and hyperglycemia and insulin resistance. Besides the viewing of light in the morning and late before the sun sets, try getting some sunlight during the day, every day. It's very good for you, obviously, without getting sunburned, but getting some sun is really good for you. Okay, the last of the 9 strategies I'm going to share with you is stress response management. Stress will determine a lot of health outcomes in your life. We all know that. Or rather, how you respond to the stress. So it's not the stress itself, but it's how you respond to it. Chronic stress has been shown to be associated with accelerated aging and age-related diseases. So if we are always in a survival state, primed with fear and anxiety, waiting for something to go wrong, or for someone to attack you, your health will suffer. So we need to get out of that state. Now, chronic stress puts us in a survival state. That is our default response. So in that response, we increase adrenaline and cortisol. That increases inflammation, and that in turn triggers the amygdala, which is the part of the brain which is responsible for fear, anxiety, panic, and rage. And that leads to brain atrophy, which is the killing or dying of brain cells, and disease. And that leads to more stress. And that's a vicious circle that we get caught in. The main purpose of managing your stress response is to minimize this cortisol and other pro-inflammatory chemicals in your body. And it really starts with awareness of your triggers. Become aware of psychological triggers in your life. So we suffer more from psychological than from physical stress in today's modern life. Chronic psychological stress turns on the stress response, and you stay in that survival mode if you don't turn off the response. So state management and minimizing psychological stress in your life is key. So stress is a state. And as I mentioned earlier, what the state change techniques were, there are all techniques that you can change your state if you're in a stressful state. So virtually all of the previous 8 strategies that I've mentioned will improve your ability to minimize and manage your stress response. Everything from breathing to sleep to diet to exercise, all of that, hot and cold exposure will help you to manage stress better. So this will help you to become more robust and more resilient in dealing with stress in your life. And thank you very much